It's January the 14th, 2026, and you know why you're here, so let's kick this off right and introduce the players. Hey, I'm Jarisaro, WoW esports aficionado.
What's up, guys? It's Big Moran, and I'm a midnight beta tester.
Hey guys, it's TrueSub Jake, and you can prepare for the TBC Classic pre-patch by going to my Twitter and retweeting my giveaway. Hey! Yes. Illidan can't scream at you. He can't scream at you this time.
No, they can't. In fact, they actually gave it to you to give away, did they not?
Exactly. Illidan himself.
You are not prepared.
What's going on with TBC Classic pre-patch? I heard there was like some massive delay and like the servers were down for like 30 hours or something yesterday. A lot of people were upset, evidently.
Yeah. It was
that.
Yeah, so what happened is they initially said it was going to be 24 hours, but they had some bugs. So it was delayed, and I guess ended up being like 30 hours. There was a great tweet. And now go ahead and quiz me on who this person is, because of course I forget who it is. But there's a classic dev who was tweeting some stuff about it. Here it is, Foibles, otherwise known as Tom Ellis. And I guess what happened is normally weeks in advance they create like a dummy server and they do a bunch of the testing on it and everything, and it's like this whole secured this enclave that you can't actually see on the servers. But for some reason, because of the way Classic and the anniversary was and the way the server cluster was, they weren't able to do that. So they literally had to go in blind and just pray that everything would work. And of course, it didn't. So they had to chunk away at it. And it was like 30 hours worth of everything. And then at the end of it, they still couldn't allow for they had to turn off the boosts, your character boost. So I think it's enabled now, but yeah, that was a thing.
It was the longest 24 hours I think I've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought it was kind of funny. People were getting upset about the pre-patch being delayed. I get it, right? But it's like, that's the pre-patch. It's not even the expansion.
I know, right?
And there was somebody was even saying that they took paid time off for the pre-patch.
Oh my gosh.
That's wild. I'm not gonna lie, that taking it off for an expansion launch, I totally get. Have done that. Pre-patch? What's happening in pre-patch? What are you doing?
Right? I don't understand it. So anyway, it was a thing. Ta-da. Hey, guess what, people? A 20-year-old game takes a while to bring back to life on a server, I guess. I don't get it. Actually, I guess it's a little bit less than 20, but you know what I mean. But Jake, speaking of something that takes a really long time to show up.
Oh my god.
Where you been, buddy?
Oh, dude. Well, to tell you the truth, I've just started a new job. I know I've hit level 60 IRL, and I'm now grinding the work raid boss, proper work raid boss, which is it's kicking my butt at the minute. I'm tanking it, but it's a load of fun. So that's been kind of sapping up my time. It has made me very forgetful, and not very, very good at sort of being here on time. But fingers crossed, now things have all stabilized. I will be back and around, ready to delight you with my very informed opinion on things related to WoW PvP.
That's awesome. Well, we missed you. We did miss you. Just one question. Your IRL job, is there also an elevator boss that you have to contend with, or is that...
No, well, I have road boss that I have to deal with where I'm out on the road.
Yeah,
and that also includes the mini game of other people, and they're pretty tricky. Those ads, you can't fight them the normal way.
No,
you got to be respectful of those ads.
That's the real PvP right there. That's what that is.
Yeah, not quite as physically PvP as I'd like to for some people.
Well, there are some people out there that use their vehicles like their bumper cars. Not gonna lie.
True.
I also have that same when I'm commuting back and forth to work, and every once in a while I see a car that looks like somebody used it as a bumper car. So I think that, I'm not sure if that should be on the road right now, but okay, tally ho. in the meantime, I guess so. I know IRL, you've been really busy. Have you had any time to game or anything? Like, where you been? Where you been at for? Like, because Classic, you were playing it, you were really into all that stuff, and then I think you got into War Within a little bit, and then Christmas hit. So, what have you been up to in the game, man?
So I've got like my classes. I sort of picked what I'm choosing going into midnight, and I've sort of a lot of the time with retail, I kind of play it fairly casually, and I PvP when I can. But I think, like we'll probably talk about today with the War Within and opinions and things, I think much like the game has done really since Shadowlands, I get very just bogged down by it. Like it kind of kills any desire to play, to want to queue up, especially when queues are so long and it's difficult. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why I think I've sort of slowly weaned myself off of retail, and why I kind of went back to Classic, because I enjoyed the general experience. I've been, honestly, when I have a bit of free time, I've just been wandering around herbing. It sounds stupid, but I've just been making gold, and it's just been very cathartic and enjoyable. So that's kind of all I've been doing, really, when I get a moment to do so.
Sounds like at least you're enjoying yourself, right? If you can call that enjoying yourself.
If I'm allowed to call it enjoying myself, I shouldn't. I should feel bad. I should feel dirty. But it's
well, that's the thing, though. Like, a lot of people are like, it's PvP, ride or die, right? And if you're not enjoying PvP, but you still enjoy the game in other ways, then hey, at least you're still enjoying yourself. Question: exactly. When you're out herbing in that, are you doing it with war mode on? And do you have any contentions out there? Like, have you run into any of the crate farming groups?
So it's herbing that I'm doing on Classic. So I have no choice. There is war mode is always on, because I'm on a PvP server. So I haven't escaped the PvP. I'm still doing it. And often I remember there was, I'm playing a Feral Druid, and in original Classic, Feral Druids are not the best, but they're like a kind of hybrid sort of concept, I think, but kind of back then. They don't quite have the capacity to be deadly by themselves that they do in Wrath. And so you kind of got to adapt. You've got a very finite mana pool to kind of play with. But I'll get ganked by a couple of people, and especially if I'm herbing like Felwood or something like that, they'll be like level 56, level 57. But in Classic, that doesn't matter. Those people can still kill you. It's not like in retail where if you're like level 80 and someone is level 70 there, or even level 75 or whatever, they're not going to just you're going to absolutely batter them because your gear is so high and you've got everything. But that doesn't really matter in Classic. There's a little bit more of a smaller disparity between people. So yeah, it can be quite competitive and can be quite fun to do that. But I've still been killing people. You know, I haven't died yet.
That's good. Rocking the true technically PvP way of being out there, putting yourself in the world and rocking it.
Exactly.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Big, I want to throw this over to you though, because this was your idea, and I absolutely love it. But I mean, this whole thing, we're just talking War Within. We're in literally the last week of it. Pre-patch drops next Tuesday, on the 20th or the 21st, depending which region you're in. And then that's it for the season, and we're moving into midnight. So it was your idea to do kind of a retrospective and think about the good, the bad, and the ugly of the War Within. And I thought I'm going to give you the reins. You have fun with this. Let's see where we go with this.
Well, interesting to just give me all this responsibility.
All the power.
I'm kidding. Yeah, this power.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to talk about. I think a good way to maybe frame this conversation is to think about it from the beginning. You know, the War Within is obviously coming off of Dragonflight, which I would argue was a very revolutionary expansion. It felt very transformative to WoW. And I think a lot of the things that we'll probably be talking about today, and I think maybe one of the shortcomings of the War Within, is it didn't really feel like a completely new expansion in the way other expansions have felt in WoW's history. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. The subject of analysis is the good, the bad, and the ugly. So there's definitely some good in there. But I think a good way to understand maybe my perspective is that The War Within was a sequel to Dragonflight, and it wasn't really very transformative. It just is basically like a Dragonflight version 2.
Mhm.
And maybe we could talk about the good, which, you know, not everyone thinks this is a good thing, but I think it was definitely a good thing, was with the introduction of rated Battleground Blitz. You know, it kind of made sense to have this as a new feature in PvP, since Dragonflight introduced solo shuffle to Arena. So we had a solo queue mode for Arena and we didn't have one for BGs. That didn't really make sense. So rated BG Blitz was, I think, a really good introduction into the game. And I think, I don't know if well, we can talk about this in a sec. I expected BG Blitz to be this massive funnel to get, you know, casuals into ranked Arena. And I don't really think it really succeeded in that front. But what I do think it did is it gave, you know, BG players a new form of competitive content that didn't exist before. And I think ultimately, I think the biggest success of BG Blitz was just how exciting the format was. Like the maps, the new rules on the maps, the faster mounts, 8v8. I think it really improved on the Battleground format. And I would, you know, we've talked about this in the past. I think Blizzard should probably introduce BG Blitz rules to normal BGs. That way there's not this like awkward disparity between, you know, rule sets. But I think if good starting place for, you know, the good in The War Within is BG Blitz. I think it was a success. Maybe not the biggest success, but it definitely was a net positive. And I think it did transform the BG mode for sure.
Yeah, I think if I can weigh in, I think it was a really good and interesting thing, mode to try and do. I mean, it was another avenue of solo queue, right? And then the extra thing, I think the thing that kind of made it really stand out for me was the fact that you could queue up DPS and healer. That, I think, was such a great option for people to queue up with your friends. I mean, if there's anything I've learned from like playing bits of League and various other kind of competitive PvP based games, being able to queue up your friends is so good. And it's the reason why Arena has been so amazing, because you just queue up with a couple of your mates or one mate and you have a great time together and you're playing games and it's all fun. Doing that in a kind of solo-esque fashion is a really innovative and a really great way of having fun. So I think I really like that aspect of Battleground Blitz. And I think I actually agree with you, Big. I think we should see that introduced. I think introduced into rated Battlegrounds in general as well. You know, get that brought back in, so that there are people who will actually play the original kind of version that isn't just a solo. So you can get your team together, like you can play threes still, like you can play twos, but get it kind of transferred over. I think that'd be a really good idea. Homogenize everything.
Well, I was referring more to like casual BGs. Like I think the casual BG rule set should be the same as BG Blitz.
Would you not do rated as well, or just leave rated?
Rated is tricky because its participation is so low these days. You know, BG Blitz. That's kind of why I said like some people may not like BG Blitz or might have a, you know, negative opinion on it, because it definitely did hurt RBG participation. Like it decimated it. I don't think there's any arguing that.
Arguably, Solo Shuffle did the same thing to threes.
Yeah, exactly. Three, but if you go look at,
but yeah.
Yeah, like it's just
still get glad from
the sheer threes. Numbers. Yeah, are pretty ridiculous. But yeah, I think BG Blitz just improved on Battlegrounds in a way that Solo Shuffle didn't really improve on Arenas. Okay, Solo Shuffle was a good system, no doubt, but I don't think it made necessarily Arenas any better. I think BG Blitz are strictly a better version of BGs, and I wouldn't say the same with I wouldn't say Solo Shuffle is a better version of Arena. So I do really like the fact that BG Blitz exists. I haven't played it too much this expansion, but every time I do, I'm like pleasantly surprised. I'm like, oh, this is actually pretty fun, you know?
Yeah.
And it's nice for like, you want to gear up and alt. You don't really want to queue solo shuffle because you don't want to have that pressure. It's you can still have an impact, I think, in BG Blitz. Depending on the class you play, even if you don't have the best gear. So that's kind of the nice thing about BGs.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not disagreeing with you. I think BG Blitz was actually a great addition as well to the War Within. The dual queue was, I think, a phenomenal idea. It makes sense. You're now into an 8v8 format. Why restrict and not allow somebody to play with their friend? That I think was a bit of a two-edged sword, though, because I believe that also allowed for boosting to be a little bit more popular and more prolific in Blitz. Although then again, we're also hearing that's happening in solo shuffles, so I think boosting is going to happen no matter where you go. I wish, I don't know, it's kind of hard. I have a lot of nostalgia for the original BGs, and so to turn the regular random BGs into BG Blitz format, I'm not totally sold on. That said, I do agree with the community in that a lot of people have been calling out for the new training grounds to use the Blitz format versus a 10v10 bot format. Because they've actually changed the map somewhat just so that the bots can work. Like in Battle for Gilneas, there's now a bunch of bridges over the water. And there's some interactions there also in what was I say? No, Arathi Basin's pretty much the same. That was just a little bit janky because it's 10v10 in a 15 format map, so that's a little hard to get around without the speed boost. But I think that would have been better actually if they made those 3 maps with bots in a BG Blitz format. I think that would have been awesome.
Yeah, I think for me the main maps I don't like in the original format. Really? What immediately comes to mind is I was gonna say Eye of the Storm is the map I really do not like in the original format. I infinitely prefer the BG Blitz version of Eye of the Storm just because it's like,
that's funny.
I don't like when you can't capture a node by like right clicking on it. Like you have to have the King of the Hill. I'm not a fan of that because it's just like it's really hard to make plays. Like, and I mean maybe some additional context. Like I primarily play like rogue and druid, so I'm like I'm the person who wants to go to like the base that's like unguarded or guarded by one person and snipe it, and you can't really do that on the old Eye of the Storm as efficiently because there's that you can kill the person who's guarding the base, but then it takes like 40 seconds for it to cap over. It's ridiculous.
Which is funny because in the Blitz format they have one of the nodes disabled, so you can't even you can only do the one node.
Yeah, but I remember,
and that's changing. Yeah. That's actually changing in Midnight.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're changing that. They're going to allow for all 4 nodes to be available now.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I remember the original. Do you remember the OG Eye of the Storm BG Blitz where it was like the gravity lapse would happen and stuff? Like, that was crazy. But anyway, yeah, BG Blitz I think was a really good system, and I know we've spoken privately about the training grounds that are coming. It's something that I think is long overdue, and I worry that it just won't hit the mark. Like it will definitely serve a purpose, but I'm just concerned that not that many players are actually going to interact with it, and maybe it's not going to actually teach the things that players should be learning. I don't know. I mean, what are your thoughts on training modes? Because I know you told me what you thought privately, and I don't know, Garrison, what do you think about training modes in general?
This is so off topic too, because that's like so future looking, but I know I brought it up. So I think the training mode is going to be a neat little thing that some people are going to do. But because the way the bots interact, the way the map is done, at best, a person might get an idea, might be able to improve if they decide that they really want to try to test things and get to know a map. which is going to be hard because then at the same, while you're out messing around trying to learn a map, you're going to get probably yelled at by other players because you're not doing the objectives. And that's the other thing, like, it doesn't teach you the objectives. It doesn't, again, we're being taught you'll be taught by other players that are in there. Unless you just happen to like recognize that if you go up to that spot and there's a flag and that's, there's something on the map that says that's gray and maybe you should interact with it, that then you get points from it. Cool. Is it going to teach anybody to not stand on the flag and get sap cap? Probably not. Again, it's going to take other players to do that.
Well,
and again,
what's
the maps are kind of
interesting.
janky.
What's interesting today, I saw that I believe there's a new affix for low-level mythic keys in the next expansion, which literally shows you the route. Like, I don't know how exactly it works, but I saw this on Wowhead. Like, it plans the route for you if you're in a low-level mythic dungeon, and it's like, well, maybe they could take some of that approach for these training grounds. Like, maybe they could show you where to go and what the nodes do and what to look out for. As you mentioned, like the rogue, like don't stand on top of the flag especially if you don't have a trinket, because you're gonna get sap capped. Yep. I think there's a lot they could do.
Well, we talked about that before. I wish there was like a Khadgar's head, and if you're a brand new player and you have like really low stats, a little Khadgar's little floating head next to you telling you to do stuff, right? But let's carry on though. I want to talk more about the War Within. Let's talk about that stuff, because we're gonna be talking about training grounds, I guarantee you, in the near future.
Yes.
But Auntie, this is yours.
yeah, my bad.
But you're leading this. Come on.
Okay, I'm leading. I think another good point. Good thing that the War Within introduced was the warband system. Now, of course, it's not perfect, but being able to transfer honor to an alt to help you gear up is really nice. I mean, we could, maybe we want a little bit more. Maybe we want the ability to transfer conquest. But I think for the most part, I mean, the War Within was a pretty alt-friendly expansion, at least definitely compared to Shadowlands and BFA. The War Within, especially when it came to like early season gearing, and getting honor gear and going through, getting the war mode gear and getting the tokens to craft your free rings and necklace, like, all that stuff made gearing pretty easy, especially at the beginning of the season and later on in the season when you have the ability to buy the conquest boxes and then convert with the catalyst and not needing to do any tasks. You automatically get the tokens to convert for the catalyst. Like, it was definitely a good expansion for gearing, and it's something that I definitely played a lot more alts this expansion than I did previous expansions. I don't know if you guys had that same experience, but I was more willing to make a new alt because it wasn't so annoying and tedious to gear it.
Yeah, no, I think if you compare it to what it was like in Shadowlands and everything, it's just night and day, I think, is the truth. It is very, very different. It's a lot better. I'm not saying it's not like a good thing. I'm saying it's really good. And I think that I'm happy with it. I'm happy with being able to alt and being able to do other things, because that was so annoying to kind of play anything else you wanted to play when you had to go through the grind over and over again. And just in general for your mains as well, it just became very difficult when, I remember it vividly. I'd go to work one day for Shadowlands, and then I came back, and because they'd made changes, everyone was fully geared and I didn't have any gear, and I just got absolutely crushed by it because of the way that they'd made that disparity in that system. So I'm really happy with the way that they've done the gearing system. I think it's actually the one thing that a lot of PvPers are kind of, I guess, take for granted, like how bad it was. I mean, so I think they've done a very good job with the alt friendliness, and I'm a big fan of warbands. I didn't care much for it either, but I thought it's actually nice.
It's so nice for transferring gold too. Like, my goodness, that's like one of the best parts. Is just being able to. I don't take much. I don't really use the warband gear. I mean, that's not really relevant for PvP, right? Like, I think that's. I mean, it definitely exists for some players, but I don't think it really matters for PvP only players. But yeah, being able to transfer gold is like such a big thing, especially these days since everything is so darn expensive. But yeah, I mean, I think my wish list for the future would be being able to transfer conquest, because I do think the conquest box system, I mean, it does serve its purpose, but the way you itemize now for PvP, it's like you kind of craft everything eventually. Like that's kind of like the best in slot is like the using the crafting orders. So conquest gear boxes always kind of seem a little bit annoying because you're not really getting your true best in slot sometimes. But I mean, they do serve a nice little purpose, especially for gearing alts later in the season. Um, anyway, the next thing I think was definitely a net positive for the game were hero talents. Now, of course, it was kind of a challenge to balance, and I would argue that in most seasons for most specs, you pretty much had one hero spec that was like obviously better. My biggest gripe with hero talents is that they did a good job, I think, at making specs feel a bit thematically unique, but I don't feel like they had a crazy impact on gameplay in the same way that Covenants did. So I think the Covenant system during Shadowlands really had these like strong identities baked into like strong, unique spells. Whereas a lot of times with the hero talents, it was just like it was maybe a passive benefit that you got. I mean, that's not always the case. I mean, some hero specs did give you actual abilities, like Demolish for warriors, but in most cases, hero talents were just kind of little passive benefits that didn't really feel like they interacted with your gameplay too much. But I don't know. What do you guys think about hero talents? Do you like them, and how do you think they compare to the Covenant system of the past?
Well, Gareth, so you go first because I keep talking.
I like hearing you talk, man. I like the hero talents. They did add a little bit of nice flavor to it. I like that whole, if you had adjoining different specs, especially like let's say warrior, where you could, you're kind of leaning in either to fury or over to prot if you're arms. Again, if you're fury, you're leaning into somewhat of the arm side or leaning over to the prot side and all that. I kind of like that idea. I liked that it carried on, unlike a bunch of the other stuff we've done previously, where there's a whole bunch of board power. You would get so far into the game, expansion ends, and then suddenly everything you worked on basically disappears, and you maybe one of the Covenant talents or one of these extra little doodads becomes part of your toolkit, and you get a little bit of power out of it, but it's not nearly as powerful as it was during that expansion. Same with like some of the Azerite powers and that. So I do like the fact that they're sticking around. And now we have the Apex talents being added onto it. I liked it because there's some flavor there. There's some choice nodes. You could do this one or that one, and that was kind of neat. At the end of the day, like I don't know about you guys, but for the classes that I played, I basically just copy and pasted somebody and I forgot about it. Like I didn't go back and take a look at it. I do recognize that some of the tier sets leaned into that, and I think that actually is my only bone of contention about the hero talents is how it was, another interaction, another buff to something we already had. It was another percentage of extra something, and then that got multiplied again by a tier set or something else in the game, and it became very hard to figure out where somebody, like, because one little tweak and all of a sudden somebody was like super overpowered because everything kind of multiplied along the way. And I always feel that that's one of the hardest things. And it really bothers me with the game is that, you have this one ability, but then there's like multiplier on multiplier on multiplier. And unless you have a spreadsheet, this is a little bit better than it's been in some of the previous expansions, you need a spreadsheet just to understand what you're doing. But I feel like, again, like the bloat and everything, it's just gotten too much. I'm really looking forward to the trim down and the cut, and I'm assuming once we're done with Titan's Fall or the Titan, the last one of this trilogy, I hope that whole talent system is going to get revamped again, because it's just going to be too over. It's going to be too much.
Yeah, I to touch on a point you made, like I definitely think it was a mistake to bake tier set bonuses into hero talents, which is what they did for season 3. So yes, for those of you listening who maybe didn't play season 3, typically tier sets just maybe buff a spell you already have in your spell book, but season 3 is unique that in the sense that the tier set bonuses were specific to hero talents. So you had one unique tier set bonus for instance, Wild Stalker, and another one for Keeper of the Grove if you're a Resto Druid. The problem with that, right, is if one of those is significantly stronger, then it kind of maybe encourages you, or in some ways forces you to play like a specific hero build that you might not want to play. I mean, I'm kind of speaking about my own experience. I like Keeper of the Grove for Resto Druid, but the Wild Stalker hero set tier set was just so good this final season. And so, that's kind of creates a little bit of friction.
Versus Holy Paladin, they're not even using tier set because it forces them to do something that only works in PvE and doesn't work for PvP.
Yeah, tier sets in general are just like such a difficult thing. To me it reminds me of like the racials conversation. Like I personally, I don't want to talk about racials, but I'm just gonna say, like, I like the idea of racials in PvP in the same way that I like the idea of tier sets in PvP. It's just like the execution never feels great. Like I like how each season might feel a bit unique because there's a neat little bonus you get on your gear, but at the same time, it just sometimes creates more problems than it solves. So that's just one minor gripe. I mean, the nice thing is typically, going into midnight, looking forward, tier sets usually at the beginning of the expansion aren't that powerful. So, we might not care too much about tier sets in season 1, but don't want to look too far ahead. I want to talk about the bad maybe of the War Within. So one thing, as someone who is a tier list enthusiast, that I've noted in recent years is I think Blizzard does as much as we like to give Blizzard some shame for their balancing, I think they actually do a pretty good job at making most specs feel at least pretty competitive and viable, at least compared to the past. Like, we're having TBC Classic come out for the millionth time. There's some specs in TBC Classic that you literally cannot play in PvP, like Fury Warrior, for instance. Like you cannot expect to have any success on a Fury Warrior. But that's not the case in retail. I mean, like we have 33 PvP specs currently, excluding tanks. I'm sorry, and all 33 of them feel pretty decent. I mean, there are some exceptions, and sometimes maybe a spec feels a little bit weaker. But I think Blizzard has done a pretty good job at making specs feel strong. Now, the only problem with that is if everyone is strong, what happens when you become greater than strong? Well, what happens if they buff Ret Paladins early in the expansion and, in the first rework? Or what if they buff Marks Hunters at the end of the expansion when they're too busy designing the next expansion and they don't do any tuning? Well, you get these god tier classes or god tier specs. And the expansion has definitely had a few of those. And I think in a world where everyone feels competitive, it sort of feels unfair if something is more than competitive. So I think Blizzard has really struggled, especially with their tendency to do these reworks in different phases, to really keep balanced without, for lack of a better word. So I don't know. What do you guys think about the overall balance of the War Within?
It's a good.
I think they did a okay job. I think season 1 they did much better. There was much more involved. Season 2 fairly involved. Season 3 just has felt bad. Like we're being ignored, and I want to, it's a case in point. And I know everybody talks about Marksman Hunter and they talk about a bunch of the other issues, and I think it was a Disc Priest, the Void Disc Priest before that, in this third season. But even then, like if you look, I think it was season 2 where I want to say it was Mistweaver monks, where like they had an obsessive amount of movement that really broke BG Blitz and made them the de facto flag carrier and nigh unkillable because they're healing themselves in between all their CDs and cocoon and everything. It was pretty oppressive. So then Mistweavers got nerfed, but then they didn't give a chance. They didn't give a look at anything else. And so now you have Preservation Evokers who also have all of this movement ability, and they've become the oppressive, nigh unkillable flag carrier for BG Blitz. And so I think the one thing that really irked me is that while balance was okay, the responsiveness seemed to be only to the things that us as a community were raising with loud voices until it became too much for them to ignore. But in the balancing they didn't then look at what that would impact on the other and to make sure that there was a balance across the whole board. They just kind of reacted to what the community was highlighting and didn't take a chance to look at what that ripple effect would be.
Yeah, I think what you're describing is particularly acute with BG Blitz. Like Preservation Evoker is, I think, the natural predecessor to Mistweaver Monk when it comes to like flag carriers. And spoiler alert, by the way, in Midnight, I know I keep on saying I shouldn't talk about Midnight, but I'm just going to keep on doing it. Preservation Evokers are looking even better as flag carriers because they added a few new talents that kind of make it make your flag carrying ability more definitely stronger. But yeah, I see what you mean, and I think it's a shame that we haven't gotten any tuning for season 3 since November. Like it was so funny because I was like, during the AWC, it's like, okay, it kind of makes sense that there wasn't any tuning, but then it's like, well, okay, maybe before Christmas. Nope, not before Christmas. Well, maybe after the New Year's. Nope, not after the New Year's. Like it was like basically they had multiple chances to do some tuning and it just didn't happen. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, with these reworks, the way they've been doing these reworks is just by observation. They seem to do Paladin very early on, and I'm guessing that's because Paladin's a very popular spec or popular class. They always seem to do the popular class reworks early on, and then every time, without fail, if they rework a class or a spec, it just becomes really good. And it kind of makes sense. It's like, well, if you're a player who maybe quit early on in the expansion because you didn't like your class, and then you've heard that there was a rework, you're hoping that it feels good to play, So Blizzard kind of has this expectation they need to meet for players, where if they do a rework, people are kind of expecting it to be good. So yeah, just as for anyone listening, if you're ever wondering how balance is going to be in any expansion, anytime they do a rework, you can kind of expect that class or that spec to be pretty decent. So yeah, class balance overall, I think, was a bit challenging in this class. It's kind of ironic. Like it's an enigma, as I said. Like the game is more balanced in recent years than it's ever been, but at the same time, the extremes just feel that much more crazy, both on the low end and on the high end. And that's what we're experiencing right now with Mark Centers and Unholy DKs and whatever, and Arena. I mean, they're just the untouchable classes. Anyway, Jake, do you have any thoughts about balance?
I mean, first of all, all balanced druids go in the bin. But with that out of the way, I think the issue is, as it always, I agree that I think the way that I see it is a kind of dichotomy. You've got the fact that all classes feel good, all specs feel good across the board, apart from tanks, all feel good in PvP. I don't think that necessarily sorts out the fact that I think the balancing is always all over the place for me. I think every class feels great. It's just kind of some classes just are feel great because they absolutely blow you up. And I think that's just a kind of symptom of the meta, and that the meta has become more fast paced since Dragonflight has kind of increased. And it feels as if that's kind of come to a head with the fact that just you've got certain classes that just blow you up for no reason. And I think nothing is more evident of that than Hunters, than Unholy DKs. Certain classes that just do unbelievable amounts of damage, and it's not like you can do anything about it. I always find Hunters to be quite unfair, because they're a ranged class that you cannot stop, that you'll never be able to kick, that does so much damage on you, and they have so much stuff built in to make everything quicker, so that if you line everything up, it just does huge amounts of damage, and you can't do anything about it other than CC them, and then eventually the CC runs out and it's kind of over. So yeah, I think in general I agree, every spec feels great to play. I just think the balancing of those specs and their strengths, and in this attempt to homogenize most things in the way that they've done, I think certain specs just feel a bit too just like they're constantly broken. I feel like Hunters are constantly always unbelievably good, and they become very difficult to deal with.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have on one of our show notes like the one shot meta, and I think definitely that's been a theme in recent years, is like anything that does big damage typically just becomes meta by default. And specifically, I hope I've coined this term by now, like the sort of blender style damage that a lot of specs do. And Marks Hunters are a perfect example, where they put down volley, and they're not just one-shotting one person, they're one-shotting multiple people at the same time. I think that's a kind of a problematic way of dealing damage. It's like, okay, pick one. You can either do big single target damage, or you can do decent AoE damage, but you shouldn't be able to do both, like huge single target, huge AoE at the same time. It just doesn't feel fair, and I think it's like really overwhelming from a healer's perspective, and it just creates this big problem for class balancing when it comes to healers. It's like, well, can you deal with one shots, yes or no? Follow-up question, can you deal with multiple people getting one shot, yes or no? And I think that's kind of been a big problem specifically for this final season with the prevalence of Marks Hunters. Like, some healers just aren't very good in 3v3 because they can't really deal with multiple people getting one shot constantly, so that's a big issue. But yeah, speaking of healers, there's kind of since the beginning of Solo Shuffle, there's been this so-called like healer crisis, and it's caused by the fact that naturally people want to play DPS more than they want to play healers. So then you get more people playing DPS in the Solo Shuffle queue. That creates long queue times for DPS, creates instant queues for healers, but then at the same time, especially early on in the expansion, for some reason, it seemed like healer MMR was always like bugged. And, it's a stressful role to play in general. And to experience a lot of stress and maybe go 3-3, gain 0 points, and then lose MMR, it just doesn't really feel good. Now, what's interesting, by the way, is someone reached out to me on Reddit about this, because I noted in a recent skill cap video that for the first time since Solo Shuffle has been released, average healer rating is actually higher than average DPS rating. And I was like, that's kind of weird. Maybe it's because healers get faster queues, and this has been a shorter season. But what this person showed me was that they had, they made a new healer that they've never played on before, and they played their first placement games last week, and their intro MMR on their healer that they've never played before was like 2150, which is crazy on its own, by the way. That's another problem. But now when they queue their DPS, who's also like a first time character getting their first queues, it was 2050. So maybe Blizzard did something this season where they just flick some switch for healer MMR that is baseline higher than DPS. I don't know. Typically Blizzard doesn't really say what they're doing with MMR, because it's kind of this black box system that they don't want people to exploit. But I mean, there definitely was a healer MMR problem early on in the expansion, but it seems like it's gone away now. And it seems like maybe the Blizzard, all he needed to do this whole time was just like increase healer MMR by 100, and then suddenly there's not this problem. But yeah, healing just, it's stressful, especially when people are getting one shot. I'm a bit more optimistic about Midnight. It seems like the pace of the game has slowed down quite a bit, but yeah, one of the bad parts about the expansion was the healer crisis for sure.
I believe part of the healer crisis was self-inflicted by the community.
Ooh.
I think people calling out the healers for their mistakes. The number of times that DPS have called out on a healer saying, "Why don't you heal me?" when they line them around a pillar, or were like, just tunneling, pressing W, if you will, and then blaming the healer. The number of times I've heard of that happening. Why would you want to heal that person? Why would you want to queue up again if all you're going to do, and worse yet, why would you play in a solo game where you, to protect your own mentality, is turn off chat and ignore all your whispers? So really, part of the reasons why people weren't queuing up, yes, there was MMR issues. Yes, it's very stressful to try to heal somebody when their health is looking like a saw. It's high as low. It's high as low. It's very scary, and you're doing everything you can. But at the same, on the flip side, if DPS, if other players could, not just rage at somebody like that, then we probably would have more people queuing as healer.
To play devil's advocate, Garrison, let me be clear. I have a health bar, and I cannot affect that health bar going up. It's my healer's responsibility to make sure I don't die. So if I die, that's all on my healers. Isn't that correct? Hey, what is the logic I'm missing here?
If you are lining your healers so that they can't heal you, or if you're forcing them into a bad position to heal you because you're bad at positioning, and then they get trapped or stunned because they're trying to keep your ass alive and not lose, then technically that's on you. You caused the situation that then resulted in the losing situation. You caused the loss.
How dare you provide a logical framework for my mistakes? This is not what I want.
guys, I hate to be devil's advocate here, but if the healer is any good, they predict that that's how their DPS would move, and they'd get.
Oh yes,
so,
thank you, Jake.
Yeah, sorry to say,
Yeah.
I need to tell the truth here.
Yeah.
So
how do you, if you so there's preing the go, right? But can you pre the idiot?
Yeah, you could if you're good. Like I'm just saying it. Like if you're a good healer, you understand that you've got an idiot on your team. You predict that they're going to
be the idiot. Okay.
Here's how to be a good healer. Think like an idiot. Just do what an idiot would do, and then you'll be good.
No, don't do what the idiot. Don't do what the idiot would do. Just know what the idiot would do, and make sure that you're ahead of that person, so that
outplay the idiot.
Their idiocy doesn't impact your win-loss ratio.
Exactly.
That's
how it should be. And yeah, so, victory assured. Profit.
Yeah.
As we finish up and talk about the ugly of I almost called it Midnight, the War Within. There were some problems, especially this late into this season. People figured out you could equip a time walking weapon from Scholomance and drain healer mana. I think it was 2 million mana every minute if you didn't actively dispel it, but apparently if you did dispel the debuff, it would automatically reapply. So there was like an exploit that was, I think, kind of breaking 3v3 a little bit. I don't know how many people were playing it in solo shuffle, but I definitely saw quite a few players, and I was linked a few armories of people equipping this Scholomance axe. But par for the course, there's usually some random item that people find in some random 100%. Season that's just like randomly good. So unfortunately, once again, people, like clockwork, were taking advantage of this. Now, I think a bigger problem, which I really hope they figure out, and we never have to experience this again, is like these weird fluctuations we have in MMR from season to season, where it feels like, okay, you end a season, and especially season one, you'll be like, oh my gosh, I was 2,400 in season one. That's crazy. You're really happy. You go into season two, okay? Blizzard resets MMR, or at least they should. And sometimes they forget.
No, they don't. They don't reset MMR.
Or they deflate it a bit. They remove.
They remove the inflation.
They squish it. Yeah. So Blizzard, squishes MMR a bit, and you're like, okay, no big deal. But then it's like, okay, you're playing and you just went from being 2,400 to being 2,100, and that seems to be your cap, and that just doesn't really feel good. Mm-hmm. And I kind of see maybe why they want to do that. Maybe they want players to be closer in MMR, so queues are faster. Who knows? But I mean, this whole, it seems like MMR seems to go up and down like a roller coaster. And I think for a lot of players, it's a bit confusing. And I just think maybe this points to the need to redesign the ranking system entirely, so it's not this number, and more so like, maybe a League of Legends ranking system where it's like bronze, silver. It's just like all percentage based, because I do think MMR is just this very confusing metric to gauge your performance. I mean, do you guys agree? How do you feel about MMR?
Yeah, I think it's had a unique system that is a bit outdated now, very much so by, I think, anyone else's standards. Like if you talk about 1,500, 21, 2K, 2,100, 2,400, 3K, like everyone's like, oh, are you talking about chess? Like, are we talking about it's just are you playing chess out here? It's like, no, I'm playing this very niche, extreme version in a game that but you probably didn't know had this sort of mini game option. And I think introducing something like bronze, silver, gold, I mean, a lot of games do this, I think would give people kind of more of an understanding of where they sit. Like, okay, yeah, you know what, you're hard stuck 1,600, but actually, that's like gold or platinum. And then people are like, oh, okay, yeah, now I understand. For example, like people would kind of understand the kind of the upper limits of what's possible, and I think would kind of help get the ladder moving. But yeah, I think I'm pro it. I have no issues with it anymore. I used to think, oh, well, this is unique to us, but actually it really doesn't matter as long as at some point you're able to get Gladiator and you're able to get bits that you want. Who cares?
Yeah. And Gareth, what do you think about MMR? Do you think it's archaic at this point, or the rating system in general, not just MMR, but the rating system?
I think MMR makes sense in the rated arena, where it came from, 2s and 3s and 5s. I think that it was a good middle ground compared to, I think what was initially it was all team rating, but as soon as your team exploded, then you lost everything. You had to build again. Now being character based, it allowed for that freedom of people to be able to move around and play with other friends in that. And I think that in its way, between character rating and matchmaking rating, I think it's a pretty good system. In solo shuffle, I feel like it wasn't the best solution in how solo shuffle is set up, especially with there's I don't know. It just feels like that there's some issues there, especially back to the healer inflation deflation and how it was its own bracket. If you had somebody that came in and was doing placement games and suddenly got one win and was in a 2,100 rated battleground or rated arena and just completely had everybody go 3-3 pretty much because they were so bad. In fact, actually that caused people to lose rating, which doesn't feel good and feels really weird. I do agree that being finishing a season and having a number tied to your to an achievement and making you feel good, and then going into another season and struggling to get anywhere near that feels bad. And I guarantee you we're going to see the same thing. There's people that have been posting first time best records, finally made Duelist, finally made Gladiator, all these things. And that's because the inflation right now is crazy. Like this is one of those higher rated seasons. There's people that are pushing over 3K in Solo Shuffle, people pushing, was it 2,700 or 2,800 in threes or something like that? Like there's some crazy numbers right now. And then season 1 Midnight's going to come around and people are going to be struggling to get 1,800 and it's going to feel bad. And so I agree, if MMR has to exist, keep it in the background, disable the add-ons to be able to see it, and make it be a percentage, make it be bronze, platinum, gold, whatever, Diamond League, sure. I think the one thing that should happen is if a person, just like in regular sports, like if you're in regular sports, use hockey for example, if you achieve a certain level of gameplay in hockey, you can move upwards, maybe move down a level, but you don't see an NHL player joining some scrummage game, in an afternoon at some arena and just waltzing over top of everybody, right? If that happens, then it doesn't feel good. And I really think that that's something that needs to be fixed. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah. I agree. So then, if wrapping things up, another problem with this expansion, and maybe it's not entirely new to the War Within, is the pre-made problem, especially in epic BGs. Just seeing, we've talked about this on the podcast before. It's just not PvP when you have 40 people syncing queue together and going in and just smashing someone in Ashran. That's not PvP. It's not fun. But anyway, now looking forward, we're about to experience the Midnight pre-patch next week, and we're gonna get we're gonna be seeing this new spec introduced to the game, which is gonna be really fun. We're gonna get a stat squish, which is sometimes fun and not fun. It depends on it's always interesting. We're gonna get like an entirely new experience with PvPing without add-on functionality. Of course, some add-ons will work, but they're not going to be as crazy as they have been in the past. So I really think what we're in store for the next few weeks is an entirely new experience. And I think to kind of to circle back to where we started in this conversation, I don't think the War Within did a good job at creating a new experience for players that Dragonflight didn't give them, but I do think that Midnight will feel like a completely new experience for PvP, just with everything coming, the ability pruning, again, add-on purge, and new spec for the first time in a while. I think it's going to be very, very interesting. But now we have to ask the infamous question that we always ask. With the War Within, or with Midnight, what is one thing you would, or just in general, what is one thing you would change? I'll give it to Garasar first.
I'm going to take from a listener and a friend of the show, and say that conquest boxes should not exist. Conquest and honor should be able to be sent to players directly, and there shouldn't be a tax on honor points. Actually, and same with bloody tokens. Maybe a tax on bloody tokens and a tax on conquest points, but honor points I think should free flow, and the whole RNG box thing needs to go.
Yep, I agree. Jake, what about you? What would you change?
I think, honestly, I'm actually going to kind of call back to what I was saying earlier. I would actually change it so that hunters can get interrupted. You're like flicking their bowstring, as it were, and when you punch them, like a kick or something like that. So that'd probably be the thing that I would change. Is like see an actual proper rework happen, but for hunters. I don't know if that makes me crazy or not, but
I agree. I mean, I am the biggest Hunter hater. So any nerf to Hunter, I am on board with. For me personally, what I would change. So I just spent this last week kind of playing the beta, and I do think it's going to be a bit challenging to play with most add-ons in reduced functionality, but I really think that interrupt should be trackable. That's the one thing I'm really hoping for in the next few weeks. I think Blizzard should make at least interrupts trackable, because it can be very frustrating to not know when a kick is ready. But that's it for now.
Indeed.
Now, do you guys have any shout outs you want to give? Garrison, anyone you want to shout out?
Yeah, I want to shout out old friend of the show, Rashiwi, my first co-host. He is doing an audio drama, and he's been getting various people around the community to do voiceover work for it. And it's looking like it's pretty cool. It sounded pretty good. So he roped all three of us into it. And just recently he did a little Twitch stream where he was showing off some of the one little scene, one segment that he had put together. I think it's like 2 minutes long, and he's still not done it. Like, he's also polish it up some more, but it sounded pretty fun. It sounded pretty good. So I'd say if you are a fan of audio dramas, and Rashiwi is a big fan of PvP, so there's a lot of throwbacks to World of Warcraft, AWC players and stuff like that. You'll probably really enjoy it. I highly recommend you go and find it. I try to remember Galactic Gladiators, if I remember correctly, is the show.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I think that's the episode. And the name of the show is Wander Home, all one word. So go check it out. Anyway, I'm done.
If I was to shout someone, I'm going to shout out a friend of mine called Charlie, or otherwise known as Syndra99 on Twitch, for getting his first Gladiator today. So congrats to him. Shout out to you.
Good for him.
Yeah, he was playing DK though, so.
Well, at least he wasn't playing Hunter.
True. Actually, yeah, he get mad respect for not playing Hunter.
I'm going to give a shout out to. Oh, sorry.
I was going to ask you, Big. How about you?
I'm going to give a shout out to Venruki, who's been owning recently on Preservation Evoker. Got 2,800 today on Preservation Evoker. That's pretty cool. So shout out Venruki. You know, we talked about the healer crisis, and Venruki's solving it by playing healers. So good for Venruki.
Good for him. Frost Mage, now a healer. Well, for now.
That's right.
Well, that's it for the show. I think, Big, I know you've done a lot of talking, but you want to round it out and tell everybody where they can reach us.
Absolutely, I can. You can contact us directly on X at technically_pvp, or on Blue Sky at technicallypvp.bluesky.social, or by an email to technicallypvp@gmail.com. You can also join our discussions on the Bonus Roll Productions Discord.
And you can visit the Bonus Roll website to find the podcast directory with us and many other great shows at www.bonusroll.gg. This directory has a review system, so head on over there and tell everyone what you think of your favorite shows, including our own.
Indeed. And don't forget, even if it's not over on that website, on your favorite app of choice, I'm sure there's some review system. Drop a comment, give us some stars, tell us what you think, tell your friends, because Lord knows we love to hear the feedback, and it helps us improve. So, as always, links would normally be in the show notes, but we don't have any links to the show. So, but head on over to the show notes. You'll find links to us. You'll find where our Twitters are, our Discord server links, as well as where you can follow myself, Big, and Jake. Have a good night, everybody. Ta-ta.
Take care.
There it is.